In this video tutorial, we're going to learn how to do some basic HTML, and I'm going to help you get started on the website story assignment. So if you read the description here, it says to create a website using HTML pages to tell a story with images, text, and links, kind of like a picture book. And it says you should have at least 5 different HTML pages that link to one another, each with text and pictures. And then there are some other resources down here that might help you. Here's an example template you could even download and use. But I'm just going to show you how to create a brand new one here. So if you'll open up a program like Notepad or Notepad++ if you have it, I'm going to open up one called TextMate because I'm using a Mac. And it'll, oh, here's another document I was working on earlier. So I'm going to create a new file, new document, and I'm just going to start typing some HTML code. Let's see if I can make it a little bigger so you can see it. Anytime you're creating an HTML document, it's a good idea to start out with an HTML tag. And at the bottom of the document, you can close the HTML tag. And the idea is that everything in between here and here is going to be the HTML code. And because web browsers are very forgiving, you don't actually need these tags here. But like I said, it's a good idea. So we'll do that. And then inside here, we'll create another tag that says head, and another closing tag that says head. And inside there, we can create one that says title, and then a closing one that says title. And let's just pick a name for this. Let's say Mr. Soderquist's story. And of course, you can call it whatever you want. But just pick a title. And let's save it right now, just so we can open it up in a web browser and make sure it works. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to click Save As. And let's save it somewhere we can find really easily. So I'm just going to put it on my desktop. And I actually want to create a new folder in here. So I'm going to make a new folder, and this is going to be website story. And then inside of that folder, I'm going to save it as page1.html. And make sure that it gets saved as a .html file. Otherwise, the web browsers won't interpret it correctly. They'll just think it's a text file. Okay, so I click Save. And now if I go into my file system and I find it inside the desktop where I saved it, which is right down here, then I can right-click on it and open it with any of the browsers I want. Or if I just double-click it, it should open with my default browser. And as you can see, there's nothing here. But if we look up top, it does actually say Mr. Soderquist's story. So if you remember, that's actually the only thing we've done so far. We've just added the title, and that title shows up in the tab. Okay. So let's add some content to this web page. And typically, you'll put it inside of a tag called body. So we can create an open body tag and a closed body tag. And then inside of there, we can start typing some text. Let's just say, this is a story about a guy named Bob. And I save it. By the way, you can just press Control S and it will save it. And I go back to the web browser and I click refresh. And as you can see, the text is there now. The text itself is not presented in a very exciting way. Let's make it bigger. Let's say, let's make it a header so we can say H1, which is the biggest of the default headers we can use. But we can always customize it further. So before the text, I have an H1 tag, and then after the text, I close the H1 tag. And I save it, and I refresh. As you can see, it made it a little bit bigger. It made it bolder. Well, let's try centering it all. So that's not very hard. So we can say everything in the body, starting at the beginning of the body and going all the way to the end of the body. Let's just make it all centered. And for some reason it doesn't want to indent that, so I did that myself. So I refresh, and now it's centered. And in fact, everything that we put in between this center tag and this center tag is going to be centered. And let's actually indent this further too. Another thing we can do really easily to make our page a little bit more exciting is change the background color. So we can just go right where it says body and insert a space and type BG color and then say equals and then quotes yellow or something like that. Then if we save it and go back to our web browser and refresh the page, now we have a yellow background. Okay. Obviously you could try several other colors. It could be red. In fact, you could do any custom color you want if you look up the hexadecimal number for it. And it might be something like hashtag FFE378. If I save that, I wonder what random color that will be. It looks like a less saturated yellow. Let's try something else. I could say 3A87F2. Save that. Refresh. Okay, so I get a shade of blue now. Anyway, so you can play around with the background, make it whatever custom color you want. Okay, let's learn how to put an image on this page. It's actually pretty easy. We can just put an IMG tag, which is short for image, of course, and then we can say SRC, which is short for source, and then we specify the file path, or the URL if we want to find an image online, and we put that in quotes. So let's actually find an image online first. Let's just say dandelions. And we could click on any of these images, and we could right click and say copy image address, and we go back and we paste that into those quotes. And this URL is too long to fit on one line, so I'm going to make it smaller now. So you can see I just pasted in the URL, which was the link to that image I found online. I put it inside the quotes. Sometimes the URL is really long, but it'll still work. Just make sure it's inside of those quotes. Okay, so we save, and we go back here, and we refresh, and now we have a picture of dandelions. And if the picture you have is too big, you could adjust the size by adding another attribute to the IMG tag. You could say width equals, I don't know, 30 or something like that. That'd be really small. So I save that, and I refresh, and now it's very small. Probably 30 is too small. Let's try 300. Go back. That's not too bad. Okay, just whatever size you want to make it, you can adjust that. All right, next thing we want to learn how to do is add some paragraph text. Because if you remember in this assignment, we're kind of making a picture book. So let's add a paragraph tag, which is just the letter P, and then close the paragraph tag. And then inside of that, we can add all of the text for this page. So we can say, once upon a time, there was a guy named Bob. He was the only person in his town. He was very lonely. Okay, let's save that and refresh. And now we have the first paragraph. Obviously, the text is so small that it doesn't wrap to multiple lines, and we don't have a whole lot of text there anyway. So if you want it to be multiple lines, obviously add more text or make it bigger. Okay, let's add another page to this story. So the last thing we need to learn is how to make a link. So let's go back to our text. Let's just type an A tag, and the only attribute we need to specify here is where the link will take us. So we type href, which is short for hypertext reference. And then we say equals, inside quotes, we can put an actual link, such as google.com. And we close that tag. And then inside of there, we need to put the text to click on. So we could say, go to Google, and save that. And then when we refresh it, we've got a link we can click on, and it takes us to Google. Okay, we don't really want to go to Google though, we want to go to another page we've created. So we're going to have to create another file, just like we created this one called page1.html. Let's now create one called page2.html, and then let's link to it. So I'll just type page2.html and say go to page 2. Okay, I save this. Now I'm going to create another file. So if you want to open up another document, the easiest way to do this, if you want to keep the same format as the first page, is to just copy the whole thing. So if I highlight it all, I click copy, I can go into the other one and click paste. And then I just want to change some of the stuff on here, right? Because this is another page. So I'm going to remove the title, and I might even actually just say page 2, so it's easy to remember where I'm at. And then I'm going to change the link, so instead this link will take me back to page 1. So say page 1, page 1. Let's change the text here so that it finishes the story. One day when he was walking through dandelions, he found a pet rabbit, and he was no longer lonely. Okay, and I need to save this now as page2.html. And I also need to find an image of a rabbit. So let's just copy the image address for this picture and paste that in here. And this is a very long URL, but it will still work. So we click save, and I go back to my web page. And now when I click go to page 2, there it is. And if I click go to page 1, it goes back to page 1. So as you can see, I've finished 2/5 of this assignment because it has to be 5 pages long, and I've just done 2 so far. So hopefully that helps you get started. Of course, if you have questions, feel free to ask in class, and I'll come try to help you.